classic hits and today's biggest tunes. Six Sounds Radio.
Time for someone that's got a lot of fans' dream job. Gary Mellor from Beswick Sports. Football agent and just back from Barcelona, Gary. How are you?
Good, thank you very much. Nice to see the weather's same as Barcelona.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that back. I did challenge you in the week to bring Messi back. Did you have any joy on that score?
I'm afraid not, no, he was on his summer break.
But you managed to bring the weather back with you, which was, that'll do, I think. Okay, we've got a few questions for you, Gary.
Yes, no problem.
I mentioned it's the dream job. Is it all as it seems to be? You know, travelling the country with football players, sports stars, watching lots of games, doing lots of deals. Is that the life of a football agent?
I think it was, when I first joined Beswicks, which was a long, long time ago, the senior partner, John Meakin, did work for Stanley Matthews and Dennis Smith and Ray Reid, and it was just a law firm that really probably had quite a bit of sports experience, and it was something that I thought it would be a part of the job that I fancied getting involved in. It inspired me to go to night school to get a law degree, and probably about 12 to 14 years ago we started a sports management company, mainly because I had a lot of the England cricket team and we were doing sponsorship deals that didn't really fit with a law practice. Football came along a couple of years later in terms of the agency business. We were acting as lawyers originally, but the FA brought in certain rules where we had to start signing players up and start an agency, really. I'd be wrong to say that there are times that I don't absolutely love the job, but at times I also probably think it takes a little bit of the love of the sport away because you know too much. Yeah,
certainly. Yeah. It takes that mystique away, I guess, does it?
Yes, it does a bit. You do know, you get to know probably everything that's going on inside the dressing room because you have players there. You get to know the managers and the different clubs far too well. And it's not without its aggravation, obviously, but I'd be lying if I didn't say there's some absolute high points. And I've been lucky to travel the world with the England cricket team, and I've represented the New Zealand cricket team, and obviously now with Jack Butland going out to the under-21s in Israel, and it's nice to go on a journey with players like the Jay Rodriguez's and the Jack Butlands, and to see them come through as youngsters and reach the heights. I suppose you take some pride from that.
Yeah, certainly, and you're guiding them sort of young men, essentially, aren't you?
Sorry, Hello, you cut out a little bit there.
So you're guiding them as young men, really, aren't you? In terms of
that's the key. I mean, we had Andy Wilkes for 10 years, and I think the key really was to keep getting him out on loan so he could get games when he wasn't going to be involved at Stoke. Taking him to Partick Thistle for 6 months and taking him to various clubs around the country. And I think with young players, if they're going to develop, especially now when you're looking at Stoke being the Premier League team, you've got to keep them playing. And that's what we've done with Jack Butland. We've kept him playing, even going out to Cheltenham, and that's meant that he eventually got his full England debut, the youngest ever England goalkeeper.
Yeah, certainly. We had a question about Jack Butland, so as you brought it up, I'll ask the question. You can guess what it's going to be. It's about Asmir holding the number one spot at Stoke, and and he said, I think at the time, Roger Jones is not God. Asked this question, by the way. He was quoted as saying he would develop better at Stoke. Do you see that being the case?
Well, I think Stoke City have got a magnificent goalkeeping coach in Andy Kai. I think he's done a great job with Asmir. I think Asmir's come on leaps and bounds. One of the things that for Jack that he's been lucky is that he had Dave Watson at Birmingham City, who worked with Joe Hart and Ben Foster. He's no longer at Birmingham City. He went to Norwich City with Chris Hughton. He's works with the England first team squad. So Andy was a big plus. Obviously, it was well documented. We turned down Chelsea. We'd also turned down other top four teams, and there probably wasn't any of the big six that didn't show an interest.
Yeah.
The reality is that I've had a lot of stick for taking him to Stoke from other Premier League clubs because it seemed to be my team, and sometimes they think biased towards your own team, which I'd be lying if I said that. I'm a fan, so of course you are a little bit, but I'm not going to mess around with Jack Butland's career and pick a club for him just because it's a team I support. I did that because I believe Andy Kai will be good for him. I hope as a fan that Asmir doesn't go. If he does go, it means Stoke have got somebody for the future. It might not be this season. It could be the season after. One of the things that I was doing in Barcelona, a couple of Spanish clubs wanted to talk to me about taking Jack, like the goalkeeper at Chelsea, the Czech goalkeeper, has been at Atletico Madrid for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Second keeper. And that was, we have to weigh up all possibilities, and I have to keep him playing. So if Asmi is still here on September the 2nd, I'm hopeful that Jack isn't. I don't see him sitting on the bench for Stoke City. Mark Hughes might see differently, and then that's when Stoke and I do have issues. But I have to keep Jack Butland playing so that he can keep his international ambitions on track, and he continues to develop. There's nothing like actual games to help you develop your game, especially as a young goalkeeper.
Well, certainly, and again, goalkeepers last a bit longer than a better shelf life than most professional, most outfield players, haven't they? So he is very much at the start of his career and a long journey to go, I guess.
Absolutely, time will tell. We obviously Mark will see him from Monday. You'll get to spend time with him. You'll see him in training. The one thing that's he's had a lot of praise. There's going to be some bad moments along the way, and he's shown that he can learn from them. I had a meeting with Liverpool about Jack Butland, and Ian Ayre said that the only player Steven Gerrard had ever picked up the phone and called them to sign was Jack when he was the England squad in Poland and Ukraine last summer. That shows how highly thought he is, and I think Stoke have got an absolute deal. I think some people think Stoke have only signed him because he's with Beswick Sports, which I find ironic, but the mindset of certain individuals.
I think it's knowledge, isn't it, mate? To be honest, I think it's a case of the assumption that you've got the contacts and you would prefer them to Stoke. But you've just explained really well that your client comes first.
He does have to come first. There's players that I've moved away from Stoke City that I didn't want to at the time. Adi Akinbaye was one. Martin Patterson, when his contract ran out, I moved him away to Scunthorpe because I wanted him playing football. And Tony Pulis and Tony Scholes at the time were both livid with me for it. But I think Martin Patterson's career developed. He got to Burnley, got to play in the Premier League, and it was good for him. You don't get everything right, you never do. But I'd like to think that certainly now the Coates family are in charge of the football club, we do have a very good relationship, and we do like to think we can help the football club. Obviously, they've taken one of my key members' staff away, which is which causes us some difficulties, but it's a good move for the football club, and it helps them probably have the chance to do better deals at better value when they go overseas.
You talk about Mark Cartwright going over to Stoke, an ex-employee, I guess.
Yes.
There still must be a relationship there, a fairly strong one, I would think.
Yes, I mean, Mark was a key member of our team, and he worked for me for 6 years. We were talking, I did a deal to Wigan Athletic today for Christopher Cann, and I was with the chief executive. They were moving Baselli out from Argentina. They signed him for £6 million. We had a deal to take him to Blackburn for £3 million. If they'd have picked the phone up to us, we'd have saved them a lot of money. And it was Mark that had driven that deal for Blackburn Rovers at the time. Obviously, when Wigan came in and offered them £6, it blew Blackburn out of the water, but they didn't need to go that high. And I think sometimes Premier League football clubs will use us to try and make sure that the deal is the right deal because of our international contacts. Yeah,
certainly. I'm just going to put Philippa on. She wants to ask you a question. I mean, she's studying sports journalism at Staffs Uni now, and just got a 2-1 in law, by the way. So might be a Mark Cartwright replacement. You never know. Over to you, Philippa.
Yeah, thanks. Well, you don't. Hi.
I just wanted to ask, football agents get a lot of bad press, obviously. I mean, the Odem Wingy situation is one of the most famous ones. How does that affect you, as in day to day?
I think that, I never looked to get into agency activity. I was approached I grew up with certain footballers like Adrian Heath, who were from the city, and an era when Steve Bold and Adrian Heath and others came through, which I'd like to see again. Lee Chapman was a few years older than me at my school. We brought through some players that went on to play at the top level, and that's hopefully where we'll be again. And due to those contacts, I actually helped from a legal point of view, and the work we did with, as I mentioned before, Stanley Matthews and Denny Smith, the firm had done, we were able to advise them from a legal point of view. And the first player I ever had came to me as a lawyer to get him out of his contract with his agent. And when we looked into the deal, it was obviously the agent was getting a substantial amount of money and the player was missing out. So I went in as a lawyer and did the deal and got the agent to check for 5%, which is what he was entitled to, and which didn't make him very happy. And all of a sudden I ended up with about 6 or 7 of that player's teammates. It was a Tranmere player, and I ended up with Danny Coyne, John McGreal, Alan Rogers, and a number of the Tranmere players that went on to play in the top division in the Premier League. And that's how I started. So I got in it by probably accident, and in a way it was probably not the agent's friend. You know, we have become a proper sports agency now. We have 6 or 7 fully licensed agents, and we like to think we do it properly. You know, you're never going to please everybody all of the time. We have a striker at the moment that 5 Premier League clubs want. Stoke City's one of them, and every single Premier League club saying to me, well, you're going to take him to Stoke, aren't you? Because you always do. And that's where we will get more flack from clubs than we will do probably from players.
Yeah, I understand. I guess that must be a real difficult sort of thing to handle and have that sort of conversation with the other clubs and seem credible to them, I guess.
Well, you know, sometimes we probably suffer because of our relationship with Stoke, and that's going to happen. But every Premier League club has a strong relationship with 1 or 2 key agencies, people that they've done business with that they can trust, so that they don't think that they're actually going to be ripped off when they're doing a deal.
Yeah.
Every club wants a player as cheaply as possible because they operate within a budget. Every agent's going to want the best deal for his player, and every football club's going to want to sell any players they want to offload for the maximum amount of money. And sometimes, especially with football clubs that are relegated, they'll have players on big salaries, as Queen's Park Rangers and others will do this summer, who they need to get out, but publicly probably don't want it to be known they want them out because that would obviously impact on the value.
Yeah.
So they'll use middleman to try and get them a good fee.
Peter Coates, we recently interviewed him, and he said the bit that got me at the end of his quote was, "I want the right player at the right price with the right deal." And you know, it was all about the deal, really. You know, that was equally important to the right player and the right price, really. Absolutely,
and it's you know, Eric Peters was a relationship that we had before Mark went into Stoke, and we thought at his age and with him running down his contract that was the right price for the right player and the right deal. The proof will be in the pudding in terms of how he performs.
Certainly, yeah.
But in terms of the value for what Stoke City have paid, it's a phenomenal deal. Now, we weren't involved in that in the end because obviously Mark could do that deal without using us because he made the contacts whilst he worked for us. But that's a good deal for the football club. The Breck Shea deal, obviously, whilst we've known Breck has had 3 different agencies in America. We were involved with one of them when Arsenal and Chelsea wanted to sign him just over about 15 months ago. Breck got injured in the middle of last season. I think it's public knowledge, had surgery. Stoke, West Brom and Fulham were all prepared to sign him whilst injured and recovering from surgery and recuperating because they felt that would be the only chance they would have of signing him at that price. Now, how Breck recovers from that surgery and performs is we're all waiting to see. I'm not Breck Shea's agent, by the way. I just brokered the deal for the football club because they wanted him, and we're up against other clubs and knew that I'd met him and had a relationship because I'd been to Dallas and spent time with him.
You got a good, strong American connection. I think Besiktas are also helping Stoke City with the tour over there, aren't they?
Yes, we did. We've done tours now for probably 10 years. We've done Newcastle United, we've done Fulham, we've done the Major League All-Star games, which we've helped to get Fluminense up to Orlando City recently, Brazilian champions. We've taken Boca Juniors into America. Tony Pulis wanted to go to America last year, and it's something that we've always done. We have the expertise and we have the contacts with the teams. It was a lot easier this year than last year because Houston are desperate to have Jeff Cameron back to play a game because he's a fan's favourite and the fans really want to thank him and say goodbye.
Yeah.
As I'm sure some fans would like the opportunity to say the same to Rory Delap and others who've been great servants for Stoke. And this is their opportunity. Breck Shea was far away the most popular player, FC Dallas. FC Dallas have never paid the money they're paying to get Stoke or any other Premier League team, but they're just desperate to get Brack back. The reality is it's about an hour from Houston to Dallas, and it fits in well. It made sense to play a game on the way back on the East Coast, and I have a very strong relationship with the Philadelphia owners and done a lot of work with them. So it's a good tour. Probably a bit warm in July in Texas. It'll be a bit of a shock to a few of them, but it certainly will help them get very fit, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think that first August day of the football season is generally very warm, so it might be a good prep for that. Dan's got a question for you. Dan's in the studio as well with us, Gary.
What I wanted to know is, I've certainly seen a player tweeting about it on Twitter, that there's people going round rogue agents that are claiming to be representing the player. Do you have a lot of that going on with any of your representatives?
A huge amount of that goes on. It's scary. Certainly with the African players, which is a big problem, because the agents will play on the poverty and the families and the problems that Mikel had with the Manchester United and Chelsea are not uncommon. The lad that went to Wolverhampton was the left winger, Sacco. We had the two teams want us to try and get him for them, Premier League teams, and it was so complicated because we ended up speaking to about 10 or 12 different agents purporting to represent him, but couldn't actually get to the player, that the teams gave up. He ended up going to Wolverhampton Wanderers. It said that he's probably going to go to Fulham. He started the season very well, and all thought we'd missed a trick, but he finished it not so well, obviously, in a struggling team. But he was a big, strong, fast left winger. Everybody was looking for them, and it was just too complicated. We could never get the deal done. And in the end, there seemed to be no value in it. And the player, unfortunately, missed out because we couldn't get directly to him. So when we travel the world going to Soccer X in Brazil, and we go down to Nigeria and Ghana and different parts of Africa, we do it because we're building up relationships in those countries with people we trust, so they can go straight to the player, sit down with him and say, who do you want to do your deal?
Do you do much business with Port Vale?
We did Lee Hughes.
Thanks for that.
We don't do a lot. We have had players historically. I spoke to Mickey Adams last week. I did a lot with Mickey Adams when he was at Leicester City. Quite a bit with him at Coventry and also Brighton. We had a conversation last week. Paul Wilds had me in not so long ago to say we would like you to work with us because you're on our doorstep and we know you have the connections. I have a very close relationship with Stoke City Football Club, obviously, but I'm not saying we wouldn't help Port Vale. One of my licensed agents is a massive Port Vale fan, Darren Long, and I think he would want to do that. And it's, I'm of a mind that I love the city of Stoke-on-Trent, and having two successful football teams would be good for the city.
Yeah, definitely.
Just more on the American connection. Cobham Stokey said US seemed to be a hot ground for Stoke City players last year, and it seems to be Spain this year. I think there's only one signing from Spain. Is that how you see it, Gary? Or
not really. I don't think that the right player can come from anywhere. There's a player in America at the moment called Alonso who's from Cuba. The problem is we probably couldn't get him in, but 10 Premier League clubs want him. He's a very good midfield player, but the work permit regulations are to be tough. Jeff Cameron was a player that Tony Pulis identified as someone that he thought could come in and do a job. Everton obviously went in far stronger and far harder. David Moyes felt that he was the answer to the issue he would have if he lost Fellaini as a midfield player. I see that Robbie Earle came out and said that he thought that was his role. Tony Scholes and Tony Pulis used us because we knew the Houston Dynamo people very well, and we know the Major League Soccer people very well, and we had an advantage over Everton. When we did Jeff's work permit to, and the first person I saw when I walked out at Manchester City Stadium was David Moyes, who gave me the short version of the hairdryer treatment, it's fair to say. But how did you manage to pull that one off when you've got Tim Howard and others pulling in his direction? But that's when I think sometimes our contacts can help. We had nothing to do with Moyes Adu, but we obviously had quite a lot to do with Brett Shea, and I'm pleased to say we now actually represent Jeff Cameron, as he had a small agent in Houston who we got on well with and paid. We may never earn any money out of Jeff, but he's a good guy to have.
Yeah, he's again, he seems a quality type professional.
He struggled last season, the second half of the season. I mean,
professional.
He struggled last season, the second half of the season. I mean, I had a conversation with Mark Hughes about his return date, because Mark quite rightly wanted him on Monday. He's been playing non-stop football since January 2012, and he had a full season with MLS and pre-season. Every international break he's flown to Honduras, Costa Rica, etc. And I think from Boxing Day on, we saw that he lost his zip. I think that, I'm biased, but I thought that Jeff Cameron and Nzonzi up to Christmas together with Asmi were our best players. And I think Nzonzi and Jeff, as a perspective, both fell off a bit in the second half of the season for different reasons. I think that we'll see the best of Jeff Cameron. It's unfortunate that he's had 5 US internationals and then still doing the 20th. Mark's given him an extra week to rest. And I think that, Mark has watched some tape and is excited about the possibilities. I think that we saw some of his qualities in the last game of the season away to Southampton with his strength and how he went past people and crossed the Peter Crouch goal. But I think there were other games where he wanted an extra touch and he looked a little bit tired. And I think we have experience of that with Chung Yong Lee when we brought him to Bolton Wanderers. The first half of the season he flew, but he'd had a full season in South Korea. The second half of the season he tailed off. He then went to the World Cup. Liverpool did a substantial sum of money for Chung Yong. He came back into pre-season and he had a really nasty leg break, and he was the player of the season for Bolton the season before, and he's never quite been the same player. And I think that possibly tiredness and exhaustion played a part in his injury, because he hadn't got the zip to get away from the challenge at Newport that broke his leg.
You as an agent and looking to protect your players and the club's investment, to be honest, by giving them an extra week. I'm glad you've told us, because I guess there would have been lots of speculation early next week. Oh, Jeff Cameron hasn't turned up. Where's he off to?
Well, that was only agreed yesterday, but I was quite passionate that I thought. I mean, Jack's in on Monday, and Jack's had a big year, but it's probably a bit different from goalkeepers. I mean, he went to with England to the Euros for nearly a month. He went straight into the Olympics, and then he's done a full season in Birmingham City in the Championship, played 50-plus games, and then he's gone to the Under-21 tournament, and he looked absolutely shattered. So I made sure he's done nothing.
Wyscout Forum in Barcelona. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Because I found that fascinating. I didn't even know it existed before yesterday.
Yeah, it's a strange one, Wyscout. It's been going some time. We have a software system called Wyscout that means that we can watch any game anywhere in the world at any time. We have if we want to watch a player, we can have that player tagged so we can watch the full 90 minutes and only concentrate on what he's doing. It's not cheap. They have a Wyscout Forum that really, any club with a Wyscout software package has a table, which are most of the top clubs in Europe, like the Real Madrids, the Milans, the Juventus, etc. Lots of South American teams. Agencies who have the package can also go, which is why we go. I Mark Cartwright and Tim Bailey to Milan probably 12 months ago, where I think Mark met Eric Peters, his agent, in the first instance, started to monitor Eric. I also, and not surprisingly, I had John Coates and Tony Scholes come in and look at our Wyscout package before Mark went in to Stoke. Then when Mark got in there, because he's changed the recruitment policy around and recruited new scouts, etc., he's taken the package, and therefore Stoke City were at the Forum, which, as I said to John Coates on Monday night, is no good to me. Because it means that they'll have all the contacts that I would like to be able to take to them and get paid for, but that won't happen anymore, obviously.
Yeah, so Mark's doing out a little bit of business there, I guess.
Absolutely. He owes me a pint, I think, at least.
Anything that we can talk about that you won't be breaking any confidences about in terms of potential signings next week?
No, I think that they're very active. I mean, they had meetings with a lot of major agents now in Spain. Obviously last week we did our own business. Stoke did their own business. I will sit down with Torres and Navas, his agents, because they're the big ones in Spain, and Stoke City do the same thing now under their own banner. So, we went separately. They had their table, we had ours, and you discuss your own business, and they've got strong contacts now. I mean, when I was in Israel, Mark Carr was in Israel, Andy Kai was in Israel, Stoke had a team of scouts. Mark was watching, obviously, the left-back. He only really featured for a short period of time against Holland and the 21s, but obviously he managed to secure him as a player with future potential.
Again, you see him
historically,
as being one
maybe that we would have brokered that, but obviously we didn't need to because Stoke have got their own guy. Every single Premier League team has gone down this route. Stoke are one of probably 40% of the Premier League teams have probably got someone with playing experience or been in the game. 60% are using analysts. It's a mixed bag, but every club's got one now. Championship as well. It's not new. Stoke are one of the last ones to do it. The board wanted to do it. Tony had a look at a list, and Tony obviously decided to pick Mark off that list, which and made a call as he'd never made. But I wish Mark well, because obviously it's my football club and I wanted to do well.
Yeah, certainly. I know you've got to go very shortly, but obviously there is a difference. Or what difference do you see between Tony Pulis and Mark Hughes in terms of recruitment and style of football?
I think that, Mark Hughes has always worked with, Blackburn had a very, very successful recruitment department, historically, when they brought in some very good players during Mark's time. Tony Pulis was one of the hardest working football managers I've ever known. He watched an unbelievable amount of games. I don't know if Mark Hughes has the same style, but I know that it's ironic that one of Mark Cartwright's one of his first two appointments was Kevin Cruikshank, who'd worked with Mark Hughes at Blackburn and at Queen's Park Rangers for a short period. They like to have a strong recruitment department, Stoke now have, and they want all the best information. When Eric Peters was chosen, he was chosen now to a short list of 5 left-backs, all of which have been watched on numerous occasions. And they've all been seen personally. And I think that's the way that you have to operate now, because you're talking about millions of pounds, not only in transfer fees, but wages. Tony Pulis worked extremely hard at going to watch players, and I can remember going to the Crystal Palace Sheffield Wednesday game after the Premier League season had finished, and he talking about John Walters, and me thinking, I can't see whether John Walters will do in the Premier League, and he came into Stoke that first season and absolutely ripped it up. And Tony Pulis had watched John Walters for years. I tried to get Robert Huth out to Chelsea for Tony previous. He went to Middlesbrough, so it's someone he'd watched over the years, and obviously was very keen on. Ryan Shawcross is another one that he'd watched countless times. So Tony did his homework. And the fun thing about football recruitment is you can never get everything right. You just have to get more right than you get wrong. Yeah,
I guess that's every manager has had bad signings over some period in his life, including the likes of Sir Alex.
Yeah, of course you do. There's players out there now that have signed to Manchester United. They've spent fortunes on that have hardly played, but obviously you forget that. You remember the good ones, and hopefully Tony Pulis will be remembered for the Ryan Shawcrosses, the Robert Huths, the Rory Delaps, the Ricardo Fullers, and we'll forget about the odd one that didn't quite work out, like a Danny Collins or an Aris Mendy. Hopefully, our view is that on a deal like an Aris Mendy, we could have helped get better value and more research with people that we have there. We spent a lot of time as a company in Argentina and Uruguay. Mark has spent a lot of time in Buenos Aires for me, and now Stoke are probably in a better place, and that's no disrespect to Tony Pulis, because he didn't have the scouting department that they'll now have at Stoke. It's an investment from the coach family. I hope it will reap dividends.
Do clubs buy players to sell on, do you think, as well?
I think
sort of invest
people will buy. I think people will. For Stoke to go and get Breck Shea at the figure they got for Breck, when they know that there's been bids from clubs like Dynamo Kiev for in excess of $5 million, they probably don't think they're going to lose money if it doesn't work out. No one knows how Breck will adapt to the Premier League. Hopefully he does very well. But Arsenal and Chelsea were prepared to risk, and so were Fulham and West Brom. Jack Butland, who knows how good he's going to be in the Premier League, but would Stoke lose money on Jack Butland? I would imagine it's very doubtful. Jeff Cameron was excellent value and could have been sold at a profit to another Premier League club in January. If you get them right and they're the right age, you should have resale value. You never buy someone to sell, but sometimes, like as with Asmi, it could well be taken out of his hands.
Is that the case over Premier League clubs? You say they never buy someone to sell. I mean, the likes of Arsenal seem to gather quite a few young European players, African players, and I guess they, have a policy of, right, okay, let's see who makes it, let's see who makes the grade, and those that don't will obviously get some return on.
I know. I mean, listen, when Frank Arneson was at Chelsea, we did a lot of work for Frank Arneson, getting the best youngsters for Chelsea, and people like Sam Walker, who's an excellent young goalkeeper, probably as big a rap as Jack at the age of 16, 17, hasn't yet come through. And he was the young England goalkeeper and the great hope. They're not all going to make it. You're never going to get them all right. And at Liverpool and Chelsea, when we worked with them, and in Manchester United, to get John Kofi at 14, 15, he was probably the best young striker in the country, but he's not quite come through yet. I hope he does. But at the moment, I think he's just been released by Manchester United, or was certainly loaned out. You can't, as I said previously, you can't get everyone right. It just doesn't happen.
Okay, Gary, I've kept you long enough,
yeah,
I think.
You
did say 11:30, no problem. I've kept you past that, and really appreciate your time this morning. Let's hope we catch up with you before the season starts again, and thank you very much for your time this morning. It's been a real good insight to the life of a football agent.
No problem at all. Cheers.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye.
Bye.
Six Towns Radio.